Savvy League. I'm your host, Coach Penn, along with my co-host, Professor Haas. Today we have a special show with the focus on community and its importance. Not just an NFL running back or elite Division I coach, but a mentor, leader, and advocate for equality. He possesses an extensive educational background in African American studies, and he's joined us today. Our other guest has handled his political responsibilities gracefully and has effected change while providing hope in the community I was raised in. Please welcome University of Arizona football coach Scottie Graham and mayor of the most resilient city in the world, Inkster, Michigan, Patrick Wimberly. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having us.
Man, such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us, putting this on.
Yes, sir.
This is great.
We really like to focus on the more than an athlete portion, of you guys' lives. Coach Scottie Graham, it's so much more to you than that excellent running back. And like I say, Coach Mayor Wimberly, I see everything that you're doing daily, and we just want to commend you for that, for the hard work that you've been doing. And thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Absolutely.
Community. Go ahead,
I live
sir.
for these type of shows, man.
Yeah. Community. We are communal people by nature. The greatness of community is most accurately measured by the compensation and compassion of its members. Coretta Scott King.
Yeah, wow, man. That, just for me, that just rings and continues to ring, from the time that she said it so many decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because without community, I mean, what do you have? And I mean, you said it right off, man. Inkster, I believe, is one of the most resilient cities in the world. I think, like New York, if you can make it in Inkster, you can make it anywhere.
Right.
As I can see for you, Coach Penn, and everything that you're doing. So I commend you for representing not only your family but our city, in such a way. So when you look at community, man, it's so important for us, especially in our culture, to get to the point where we're really helping one another,
Right.
and really trying to elevate one another through whatever it is that we can. We hear people all the time talk about paying it forward, but what are we truly doing?
Right.
And that's for me, being in this position as mayor, it's important for me to touch as many people as I possibly can, with the talents that God has gifted me to be able to, hopefully influence the next generation of our community. Because
Right.
based off of that, that's the only way that we're really going to be successful in life. So,
Yes, sir.
I know we only have a short amount of time, but
we know as long as you guys need to get your point across. All right.
Yeah.
Coach Graham, what is
It takes a village. Based on your quote, I was listening to the mayor, and it reminded me of an African proverb. It says it takes a village to raise a child. If that child's not nourished, it will burn down the village.
Yeah. That's
So
true.
we have to be able to take these young people where they are. They're not like us. Their resiliency is different. They're afraid, they're scared, and they act out. So the biggest thing you could do is listen to them. And you have 2 ears and 2 eyes. Pay attention to them, listen to them. And if you can hear them, I think they'll listen to you. But at the end of the day, they're different. God has created those young people that they can smell it, almost like a dinosaur. That I'm not messing with you. I'm not trusting. Here he comes. So we have to put ourselves in position to really be servant leaders. And by being servant leader, you really got to serve. And a lot of people talk about it, but they're not living it. And these young people, they can smell it. They know it. They go, I ain't messing with that dude. Hey, Mr. So-and-so. Don't talk to him. So,
Hey, Coach Graham, being from Long Island, what is your perspective and idea of community? This is an open forum question also.
the community built me. I mean, Long Beach is a unique place on Long Island. I mean, you have, I knew what gefilte fish was. I know what matzo ball was. I know what a knish is. I know it's manigot, not manigotti. I mean, so I grew up around Italians. I grew up around Black, white, Chinese, Jewish people. So I grew up in a melting pot. It's one of the most diverse cities in America. In fact, they actually charge to go to the high school there now, which is unbelievable. They have like a private section of the school where you can send your kids there. So I grew up in a melting pot. I understood, little egg, big egg. That was, Fitzgerald. I mean, Great Gatsby, I mean, Great Neck North, Great Neck South. I knew exactly where those places were. So I grew up in a place that was kind of sheltered, but it was my own little gem of a place to grow up in. And I didn't realize how valuable it was until I went to school, coming from New York and Long Island in particular. They're two different places. Manhattan is internationally diverse. And Long Island is more than likely racially or ethnically blended.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, now and Coach, it was just a little bit different for me. Where we're from in the city of Inkster. Here it's small populace, 24,000 folks. With the recent census, and the community is mostly African American. But growing up, even for me, I'm 47 now, but you saw the effects of the community based off of segregation too here in our area. So where you're from is related just to culture and everybody blended.
No, that was high school. That was high school. That wasn't my neighborhood. That was the high school I went to.
Okay,
Remember, I'm 52, and they did the old experiment. You go to this high school, you go to this high school. No, that wasn't my neighborhood. I grew up at. No, I grew up in a straight up Baptist black church where you went to church all day long. You was on mother's house, going to Sunday school, after school. Oh no, wait a minute. We talk about where I grew up at. We talking about I went to school.
Right. Yeah, gotcha.
Where I grew up at, it was definitely when the McDonald's over at Martin Luther King, when every community got one, that's where we lived at, by the railroad tracks and all of that. But they integrated us and brought us to a school 2 miles away. Okay. So I was fortunate to get a quality education, but that's not where I grew up at. So I never really lost my understanding. I went to a community center, Martin Luther King Community Center. We learned about Black history and Black folks. So I never was really far off. I mean, I got a quality education at a predominantly, white high school, but I never really lost my culture. A lot of times you get there and you forget where you came from. I never forgotten. The people where I grew up, they know. I can go back there tomorrow and they look at me and go, man, there was Scottie right there from around the way. So I love the fact I go home, I go run like I used to run the neighborhood, and people just look at me. No, the high school I went to versus where I lived, that was 2 different places. I mean, there were people in my high school that were driving, a Supra at the time. I'm thinking I didn't even have a driver's license. So, and Snapple, Avon, those people lived on it, and not in my neighborhood, but we used to call it the white neighborhood. Yeah, and my mom and grandma used to work down in the white neighborhood.
With respect for that, and again, of course, I know we don't have a lot of time, but just to chime in on that, I think it's important as a community that that we educate one another, in the present. We talk about our history, right? And everybody notice we've never lived a story of slavery, but the present of what we lived and what we've been through. I think those are the important stories that we need to be sharing with our kids nowadays as it relates to the foundation, not getting away from our history and where we've come from, but, really talking about, what happened in our community, during our era for it to be the way that it is now, and then the things that we can do to change. But, getting back to the original question as it relates to just community as a whole, I mean, community should have some type of structure to it. When we were growing up, you had, you had Big Mama, you had, your uncles and your aunties and your cousins. And if you went outside and, you wasn't home before the street lights came on, and going, walking to school, if you was out of school and you were supposed to be in school, your family and friends and cousins, whoever, somebody's going to check you along the way, And we know that because of, the institution of America now as it relates to, not being able to use the rod, but I believe in if you spare the rod, you spoil the child, for me, discipline is very important. And as you guys, of course, you guys have been professional athletes and, working with, with kids and, and just building team, that's what community is. Community is a team, and having everybody in their place, doing those things and passing it along, One thing during my election as I was running for office, a young lady said to me, because being from Inkster, 32% above the national poverty rate, 43% above the national unemployment rate, 85% African American, here. And, again, we talked about segregation. We grew up in that. And you had, crack in the 80s, of course, heroin hasn't went anywhere, gang violence, all of that stuff, in small pockets. And in Inkster, man, we have over 1,200 units of low-income housing that's actually in one area, well, actually 2 areas, which is affectionately known as Little Saigon and
Lamont Gardens.
Lamont Gardens, right? So you have all those things concentrated and compounded on one another, where things have happened over so many years that leadership is really just now kind of coming to the forefront to be able to say, okay, these were the problems that we were dealing with, but it's our responsibility because hell, we were part of the problem, in some instances, and trying to correct that. So young lady came, she said to me, and back to you, Coach Graham, when you were saying about the kids and they sniff you out, I'm a kids person. I love kids, and young lady said to me, she said, well, they call me Mr. Patrick. They're like, Mr. Patrick, we gonna vote for you regardless, because we love you. We know that you're genuine, but why should we care about the community when our parents don't? When you look around us and it's garbage all over the place, and you have broken windows all over the place, and the property's not being taken care of. So why should we care, or why should we take responsibility? So that's when we talk about community, really talking about, being responsible. Number one is the leadership of the community. And then, of course, transferring what you have into to people and building the community that way.
Now, Coach Brown, you have an incredible perspective and an incredible experience of being able to deal with different African or men from inner city and different communities yearly from so many different areas and aspects of the country. So and to fall back on your education of being African American studies, and Mayor, you being from where you're from, where I'm from, and having your boots on the ground right there, this question is very important. What's the difference between community now and community of past decades? My father would tell me stories about Inkster, about things that used to go on at the King Center, and events and what they used to do. It was the difference, or he even told me back in the '70s when the Black Panthers would march down streets. Fast forward to when I grew up. When you start seeing things come apart from the stitches from the seam. That's going to be the next question. How can we get that back together? But what is the difference between now and then in community? And what has aided to it? Coach Brown, Mike.
Digital Underground, give a shout out to Shock G. Same old song. It's not changed. Every time you get a leader, they got to do something to beat them down. I mean, it's biblical. When Pharaoh said, who is this man with no words, who has no letters that has knowledge? Every time we come up with a leader, there's going to be shot down because they know at the same time, if you look at the incarceration rate, it's just the same song. It's just recycled from Huey Newton to Malcolm to Martin to Sojourner Truth. And you start going back. Anytime you get a leadership and the leadership starts growing, they got to shoot it down because they know the leader's coming from the bottom and coming from the bricks. And that's when the diamonds and all the jewels are made anyway, from the bottom. And they know the leadership is coming from there. So they'll continue to perpetuate those myths. And it's institutionalized, and it's something that you really just embrace and make the changes you can, because the system is not built for you, never was built for you. And we need to come with that truth. America needs to realize that's the truth we need to live in, because it was never built for you. It was built by you so we could control you. So when you look at the crime and the violence, it's catching it on camera now. That's the biggest difference. It's always been happening. You grew up in a neighborhood, well, so-and-so cop screwing around with so-and-so mom for no reason. Like, why? Because he could take advantage of the person. So my son and I was talking today, and Puffy said that, I'm glad God made us some forgiving people, and God made us some people who are compassionate. Because if we decide not to turn the other cheek ever, it'd be a major problem. And they know that. And I say they know that, meaning the powers that be, because every person in power doesn't necessarily have to be Caucasian. There are plenty of Black people in power that, like Chuck D said, every brother's not a brother, just as well could be undercover. So it's not a color, it's really a cause. And what is your cause? And what is your rhyme or reason? So this there, institutional racism is there. And you just got to make sure that you put yourself in position to get around or to, as the mayor said, kind of morph into what fits. Like, I know I can't run up on a young cat and go, yo, they're going to be ready to swing on me. Now, and now I created that. You guys know, you go to the barbershop, you're going to cut the line, come in there with some respect, find out who the elder are, and keep it pushing. Those things haven't changed. And none of the leadership has changed. It's put in a different place. I think the biggest difference for me, though, is the place of the Black church. I don't think the Black church has its place because it's becoming more commercialized. It wasn't, like, for me, that was where everything started, was the church. And I don't know in Long Beach how the church is being run, but that's where everybody got their strength from. Pastor Evans, when I grew up, just everything went through him. And so, but the leadership, same old song, like Shakti said. I mean, it's a hamster wheel. And, you know, we just keep spinning on it. And for every one of us to get out, 3 or 4 of us stay or get incarcerated. That's how our system's built. I was reading something the other day about the incarceration rates for African Americans in America. It's like 3 times as many, whether it be in China, Lebanon. There are 3 times as many. 1 in 3 Black men have been in jail for some odd reason. I'm not one of those 3. How many? We got 4 in any of y'all been in?
No, sir.
Okay, so we beat our quota. We beat our quota, and we win in this 4 squares right here.
Sure. Well, prison industry is maybe the
number. Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, now, just want to make sure I answer the question.
The prison industry, I think, is the second biggest industry in America. You know, so that's what you're dealing with also. You know, in these low poverty areas, you know, and it's a big recycling type system that's going on. You know, when it comes down to employment, you know, let's go. Yeah, Mayor.
Coach Ben, if I could just add to, you know, what Coach Scottie was saying, man, you know, it really too, even going back to what you were talking about, like Inkster, because I get that all the time, you know, like, let's make Inkster great again. Mm-hmm. You know, well, you know, really, you know, we had some great times. Let's talk about it. We've had some great times within our community. But as it relates to, you know, Inkster as a whole being great, we haven't achieved that as of yet, you know. And I know some people, you know, they get mad at me, you know, by saying that, but, you know, I'm on the faith that, you know, God has put me on this path. So, you know, whatever, you know, I say that comes out, you know, I really think about it. At the same time, I'm a vessel for what he has for me to do. Mm-hmm. So back then, when we talk about, you know, us as a community, we were segregated, man, you know, so when our pops and our moms and dads, you know, they had their whole, you know, thing going on, all of the businesses were owned by Black people, and they were in our community. Mm-hmm. We weren't trying to move across the Ave, you know, because we had everything right there that we needed. You know, our schools were, you know, they were rivaling, you know, the Caucasian schools right across the road. Yeah. But as soon as we thought it was something better, that's when we moved out. So then we moved out as a community. So when we talk about, you know, just the bottom line of what happened to our community, yeah, we stopped looking out for one another. We started thinking that the grass was greener on the other side, but it wasn't. Absolutely. And it's not. And, you know, that's awesome. Relevant today. And I think that the timing of all of that right now with us is that we realizing that we're trying to come back together, but we're so disfractured, if I'm saying that correctly. You guys, Professor, correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, I just think as a community, like, we're just so disfractured, and we're being, you know, sensationalized, like you said, with the church and all of that stuff is going, you know, to social media, and everybody has an opinion. We really don't have, you know, structure to us to be able to say, okay, well, let's come together and work on this project. I have 6.2 square miles, 7 minutes from the international airport, Michigan Avenue from downtown Detroit, 20 minutes, to Ann Arbor, another 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. I'm in a strategic location where I know that if we really wanted to, as Black people, to come together, let's make this an example of how we could be that Oklahoma City that we all talk about, that Black Wall Street.
Hey,
and that's what happened.
Real quick, let me add on to that, so you can take it, continue on what you're saying. So I grew up in the house that my father grew up in, that my grandfather bought in the 60s. The same people that watched him watched me. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
Yep. So with so many people leaving, you know, who were the nucleus and the core of the city, how do you regain that with new people who don't have that history and that structure?
Yeah, man, I think it goes back to leadership, what Coach Scottie was saying, you know, even from, you know, the church, like in the city of Inkster, man, we have 47 religious organizations and 6.2 square miles. Yep. Some have impact, some don't. At the same time, the leadership, as it relates to, you know, again, the mayor, me being the mayor and embodying this position, coming from the bottom, grew up in Lamone Gardens, lived in the hotels on Michigan Avenue until I got my grind and really started to hit my stride. You know, I understand the struggles of poverty and the things that, you know, the folks were talking about, but I've never lived in an Inkster that, you know, for me, I can say was great because of the fact that it was so distraction. You know, yeah, I could leave my grandma's house, I leave my mother's house. My mother was, you know, she had some things going on, you know, whatever. But then I go to my grandma's house, and it's what you're talking about, Coach Penn, you know, where my grandma was there, my granddad was there. It was that, you know, we went to church on Wednesdays. You went to Bible study on Thursdays. You went to choir rehearsal on Saturdays, got ready for church on Sunday, you know, and you, like you said, all of the word came from all of the word, the political word, you know, all the orders, you know, as it relates to what was happening in the community came from the pulpit, you know, so we have to, you know, pay respect to that. When we took God out of the schools, it's just what it is, and the paddle, our community went to hell, and that just, and it's just what it is, man. You know, it's for me that I know that, you know, people don't want to, you know, they don't want to see it, you know, they don't want to understand it, you know, so for me, it's now saying, okay, I get it. What can I do? I'm gonna live here in Inkster. I'm gonna raise my kids here in Inkster. I'm gonna use my talent and my time here in Inkster, and I'm gonna influence other people like myself that's like-minded, whether they grew up as an Inksterite or not, it's like-minded that want to have a community that's really a true culture to elevate to the next level with a 100-year plan for so we won't have this happen again on a true foundation.
Okay.
Absolutely. You know, you talked about Black Wall Street, and I lived in Tulsa for 17 years. You know, and one of the, and I'll be honest with you, the reason why I decided to stay in Tulsa was learning about Black Wall Street, and actually getting to walk on Greenwood, and I worked with the Urban League, and you know, it was the one of the things that I saw was, one, you know, I could navigate around Tulsa better than people who grew up there. Because those who grew up in the north side didn't really go to the south side, and those who grew up in the south side didn't go to the north side. Well, I was moving throughout both, and so you know, understanding the community that they had, they didn't have to go outside of that community for anything. But when another thing that you touched on that I really want to make sure we bring to the forefront is helping one another.
Yes.
Right. There's no way, there is no Black Wall Street if one business is not helping another business. And see, that we lost a lot of that. There's not a whole lot of that going on right now. We would rather talk about my brother's business or my sister's business because they're not doing, rather than having the knowledge that we've possessed from experience or through education, to be able to pull them to the side and say, hey, you know, I like what you're doing, but if you make this small little turn, this may really help out. It's up to them to take it or not. But the thing is there's not enough of that. We're not looking out for each other. You know, I appreciate both of you guys for coming on our show. You see that we're getting things up and going, and you say, you know what? I see you guys are doing something positive. I'm gonna jump in here and I'm gonna do what I can to help you guys out. That's the community that we gotta get back to if we're going to continue to see any type of upward movement.
But it goes back to one word. Leadership. If the leadership's not there, if it's not structured, as the mayor said, that you have nothing. And your culture, what are we going to do and we're not going to do? Because culture, everybody got a plan. But when leadership and culture comes together, you eat lunch, breakfast, and dinner with culture and leadership. You can't stand it without it. So I think the community as a whole, we've lost our way. Or they say back in the days, we lost our way. Who are your people? People don't have 5 people that can tell you that help influences their lives. I mean, 5 people they talk about.
How do you positively affect the community and move it forward? What is
I just try to live it. I try to live it with the young people. And then when you hear them say, I want you to meet my mom, I'm like, whoa. Oh, can you write a reference letter for me? That's when you know you impacting them, when they ask you for something. Because generally they don't want to ask. They're not humble. They're not going to say, help me. I'm going to say, help me. They're going to say, I'm good. I'm not going. No, you could be sitting there rotting with your foot messed up and you're going to keep your pride. Not me. Help me. I got a splinter in my foot. Help me get it out. They don't choose humility. So that's why you got to serve them. And so for me, when I know I'm impacting young people, when they say, I want you to meet my mom after practice, coach, can you say hi to my aunt or my grandmother? And I'm like, okay, whoa, they talking about you. Or I'm thinking about marrying this girl. Like, what? I mean, that to me is the biggest impact I could put when people ask me to write a reference letter. Or can you be a reference for me if they call me? I'm like, no problem. I'll definitely do it. So I know that I'm serving that way. You know, I handle my wife. I bring my wife around. I think it's important who you marry to. And when we see my wife, we see a strong, extremely strong Black woman. They get a chance to see my family. So it's not just I'm talking about it, I'm being about it. Well, you know, my number one question is, how you gonna help me? You can help yourself. How you gonna fight for me? You ain't fighting for yourself. So learn how to fight for yourself first before you step out there and be a leader. And we got a lot of false prophets, like J. Cole said. Just because you popular don't mean you're a leader. Just because you're leading doesn't make you popular. Usually the most leaders come from the bottom, and we know it. And what's happening is by the time you get up there, some people are falling off. So you just got to capture as many as you can in a wide ranging net and go, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing. And that's ultimately my secret to my success. I get a chance to wake up and be me every day. I wake up every day and go, you know what? I'm okay being Scottie Graham. I'm okay. You might not like me. I got crazy attitude. That's why attitude doesn't bother me. I love people with attitude. You know what comes behind attitude? Work hard, ethics. You can change those people that work hard and got attitude, because people with attitude are your strongest leaders. You look at any unions, we talk about leaderships. When working park quarters with A. Philip Randolph to the leadership I wanted with Gene Upshaw at the NFLPA, it started with leaderships. And leadership is lonely. Trust me, it is. Even Superman and the rest of superheroes, they got problems. Tony Stark's an alcoholic, Iron Man. He got issues. So anytime you're a leader, it's a lonely spot, and people aren't willing to be lonely.
You're in a rare position, Coach. You're in a rare position, a unique position, that you are getting young men at that pivotal point in life where they are on the road of success. So you get to sharpen, because they're going out to be leaders, especially what they're doing and where you're at. You get what I'm saying? They're going to be coming into finances that they never imagined, and that you have your hand directly on them. So when they leave you, they can go out and be community leaders. You get what I'm saying? And handle the responsibility of being a millionaire overnight. Yeah, so thank you, man. I see the work you're doing.
But also it's important to let them know there's room for failure. There's room for things disappointing. You don't have to be awesome overnight. I mean, you're going to make mistakes. Just you don't want to make mistakes, continual mistakes. They're going to hurt you. And so ultimately leading them is just basically by loving them. And sometimes love hurts. And once they trust you, you can treat them rough. And you say you use a paddle, you may have to. And my best coaches never touched me, never yelled at me. They just looked at me. And they would go like this. And you knew. When you were at Sunday school and you were playing around and she went like this, you knew what that meant. Nobody laid hands on you. You know hands was coming after that. But when that went like this right here, Miss So-and-so did that with them glasses, it's a wrap. So that's ultimately what I do with them. I don't yell at them. And my glasses get dark when I go outside. I go like this to them. And they go, all right, coach. I'm like, just understand. I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to MF you. We get to this room, we're going to have a conversation. But, when we out on the field, let's take care of our business. So ultimately, I take them one by one, relationship by relationship. And when they go, hey, can you meet my dad? Or my dad wants you to give him a call. My mom wants you to give him a call. I'm like, what? Okay, I'd love to talk to your mom. But I ain't talking to her about football. I talked about you. And what you've been doing, but when I'm talking about football. So that's ultimately I just take my slice and just really work with it.
Gotcha. Now, Mayor, when we come to, talking about positive changes that can affect the community and move it forward, I was home 2017. And what I saw, I believe, plays a huge role in the lack thereof community. I saw police officers who aren't from there. I saw state police officers patrolling local neighborhoods. That entails the lack of community and the lack of, caring about the neighborhood that you come from. You get what I'm saying? And everything else that entails with, policing a neighborhood that is not dear to your heart. You guys have to do what you have to do, but I want to bring that up, as something that I saw, that I witnessed, that I noticed, in the verbiage and in the language and the conversation that's going on around me when they would pass, or opposed to Booker Snow driving down the street, and him stopping and saying, "Hey man, where your dad at?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah,
my neighbor was
You,
Mr. Madden. Mr.
yeah,
Madden, here you come. Okay. You better get right. And you know what though?
yeah,
That goes back to community. It goes back to community leadership. So what they've done is they moved to the suburbs. They don't work in your neighborhood. They don't care about you. So we're gonna take our tax dollars and make the schools better out here. Come and police your neighborhood. Keep putting y'all in that system. So it's just a plan. I got a hard stop in 2 minutes, man. Just invite me again. I'll get on. I have no problem doing this. But I mean, this platform, having these conversations, I think bring people together when they see it. So, and you know me, I'm open book. Get at me. You need me to talk to anybody or talk at any point, just hit me and let's
yes,
roll.
sir.
And
Oh,
I know time is of essence for everybody, but man, this is incredible. We're moving it. And my platform and my pulpit is that every day I walk in that multi-billion-dollar business called college athletics, I get a chance to lead. And the way I walk in that building is the most important thing in how I walk out and how they'll look at this example and go, whoa, somebody's doing it right. And I take that responsibility. I know Charles Barkley said when I was probably a junior, senior in high school, you know, I'm not a role model. I'm like, nah, man, yes, I am. I like being a role model. I like people going, that's a black man right there. That's a black man. And, you know, that's really cool to me when people recognize that and they go, whoa, how you doing, man? I'm like, good, how you doing? And they're really concerned about that. So I got a hard stop, fellas, man. Y'all can roll. I literally got a hard stop.
I
I
appreciate you,
appreciate
Coach.
it.
I'll be tapping
Man,
back
if I
in
could
with
do
you.
anything for you, let me know. We'll
hey,
connect.
speaking things real quick, and you know, let me say this, that, you know, as we talk about impacting the community, you know, my philosophy now is that we got to, you know, impact the people. You know, the buildings are what they are. You know, I mean, you know, it is what it is as it relates to, we know where we're at here in the city of Inkster. We're in a deficit, not uncommon with other African American communities throughout this country. You know, it's just what it is. At the same time, I believe that the people that you have to put your time and your work into the people. You know, unfortunately, one of my good brothers passed away, Kenneth Clark Jr. He passed away this week, and I was at his funeral today. And the pastor said, you know, don't leave this world full. You want to leave this world empty as a person. And that's what I try to do every single day. You know, I have to put something into other people, because if I keep everything that I've gained, all the knowledge that I've gained, all the experience that I've gained. So with the coaching, you know, of course, you guys being coaches and professor, you know, I know it's a mentoring game every single day. But for me, I'm trying to impact the community and say that we all have to be leaders. We all have to be responsible. We all have to be mentors. We all have to be accountable to one another. So it's like for me, every day in my life, I'm looking at the Hydra effect. If you watch Marvels, you up on Hydra. You know, they cut one head off, another head is there. So as Coach Scottie was talking about, you know, the leaders, you know, build coming from the bottom, going up to the top. By the time you get there, you know, that leaders fell off. It's because that we don't have that Hydra effect going. We don't have enough people on the ladder that we're all pushing our talent, and we're pushing and challenging one another. And we're making sure that we're pouring everything that we can into those people. So that's the first part of that. The second part is about, you know, the policing. And listen, when I came into office, man, that was one of the first things that was, you know, truly important to me, because we had an incident here in the city of Inkster about 6 years ago, the Floyd Dent incident that went national, that police officer, along with some cadets and auxiliary, pulled over African-American gentleman, a senior gentleman, and pulled him out of his car and beat him half to death in the city of Inkster. And it was a routine traffic stop. But let me say this, we were going through a deficit at the time, and it's no excuse for what the officers did. We were going through a deficit elimination plan, and we were under consent decree from the state of Michigan. So that's where you had police officers, where we were paying police officers and not even training them, but we were paying police officers $15 an hour with no benefits.
I mean,
what do you expect? What do you expect to get? I mean, you know, even when we talk about, you know, our frontline workers and our teachers, you know, I mean, they're underpaid. I mean, you know, we want them to do, you know, do everything. We want them to protect and serve and to teach and build. but we won't pay them what they're worth, or we can't afford to pay them what they're worth in a
So we can
municipality.
do better than what we
So,
do.
oh, no doubt about that. And that's why we have to really, start to charge the state government, the county, the federal government. Believe me, I took a picture with Donald Trump
I saw it.
about a year ago, Coach Penn.
Yep.
And people, some of my closest friends, they were upset with me. But I had to say this was the real for me.
Mhm.
Republican or Democrat, what have they done for Inkster?
Nothing.
What doors have they truly opened to the city of Inkster, to where you got Dearborn right next to us that look like us? We got Rumlis on the other side that look like us. Garden City, and ain't nobody struggling around us. Everything, you when you get on Michigan Avenue in Inkster, you in Inkster.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Why?
Why is that? Because again, your leadership, and because of historical racism is what it is. It's because of segregation, historical racism, not having the tools that we need to be successful within our own community, to govern our own community. The state just sent out, the federal government just did this CARES Act thing, right?
Mhm.
The city of Inkster, we got direct monies to help us offset some of the the COVID costs, or the costs that we incurred because of COVID with overtime or whatever it was, right?
Yes, sir.
24,000 folks here in the city of Inkster. We're already facing a $2 million deficit, which thank God that we've been able to work that out.
Mhm.
They gave us $2.3 million for the next 2 years.
Mm.
They gave our counterparts in other communities double-digit monies. 10 million, 19 million. I'm not calling their names out. They know who they are. But when you look at Inkster, we need that money. We can use that money to hire police officers in our community that look like us, to build our housing stock up to where we can attract people to live here in the city of Inkster and to work in the city of Inkster. And
How
that's
do
it
you
right there when we talk about that.
how do you actually fight that, or combat that, when our city was built essentially on hatred and segregation, because they
Man,
didn't want us to live in Dearborn to get to Henry Ford. Get
yeah,
to
right.
Ford.
To talk about it, to do what you're doing right now, Coach. And that's why I commend you. That's why I said I'm going to be on your show anytime you need me.
Yes,
Just
sir.
like Coach Scottie said, I'm going to be here for you, brother, because
Oh, man.
we have to talk about it in these positions. See, I'm in a position of authority and a
Mhm.
position of power and influence. I understand that. But God has given me this position, so it keeps me humble every day.
That's
So I
right.
know the same people that you meet going up is the ones that you'll meet coming back down.
That's right.
It's just the reality of it, right? So it's important for me that when I came into this office, I looked at what was happening in our PD, and I said to the chief, "Hey, chief, we need to hire some more folks that look like us,
Mhm.
that's from this community, and the gap was in between it. And thank God that we had a chief that came in after the thing happened with Floyd Dent. That came in and he was all about community policing. And Chief Riley is one of those guys that he's out on the street himself. African-American gentleman from Selma, Alabama, came up to Inkster with the philosophy of community policing. And we've been doing it for the last 5 years. And when I just thank God, I can say today that we've hired at least 6 officers that look like us, that live in this community.
Good deal.
We had 30 officers here, in the city of Inkster, where it's kind of crazy. You talk about, 30 officers for 24,000 people.
Yeah.
The chief and the AC is included. That's a problem in itself. But what we've started doing through this administration is we're formulating block clubs again.
Okay.
We're saying to those people, say, and me and you, we talking Inkster right now. So in Compton, I have me an alderman in Compton.
Okay.
I'm saying, hey man, this is your area. What's going on over here? So whether you from the streets, you in between, or you up here, with me serving the people in the political realm, we all have to be speaking the same language on what it is that we want for our kids.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day.
Hey,
So we all have to be accountable to that.
I'm sorry. You took
No, go ahead.
this position. The slate wasn't clean. You know, I've been watching the entire
Okay.
time. You know,
Yeah.
the slate wasn't clean, man. You took on a position, man, and put the weight of 20 elephants on your back, and I see you walking.
Thank
You
you.
know, you're affecting change. Now the people that I went to school with, I see my brother Samuel Ward
Yeah.
with the Cup Foundation. Yeah, I see
Yes.
those guys, my partners, my friends, my peers, being active in the community and trying to do something to change the community, and that's
Yes.
very commendable. Even though I don't live there, any longer, and my father, my roots have been uplifted. You know, I'm still from Inkster, and I'm proud
That's
of
it.
this.
That's
You
it.
know, I'm proud of you. When I saw you were running, it's like, oh, somebody actually know. Yeah,
Amen.
goodness. And I see the change and I see the programs that you're putting in. I see Jason working. It's just a beautiful thing. And
Thank
I
you,
want to
sir.
be a part of it. Any
And
way I
brother, well, you
can.
are already a part of it, brother. Just what you just said, and I'm actually gonna be formulating here. COVID set us back a little bit. I came into office in November 19, hit the ground running. By March, we were in full blown COVID, and we were trying to figure it out. Now we're kind of getting our hands around it with our leadership, here in the great state of Michigan. Our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, I'm behind her 100% in the steps she's taken to make sure that all of us are safe,
Mhm.
especially in the African American community. And I really appreciate her being allowing us to be a part of that, and a part of really changing the narrative. And what you're doing right now is being a part of changing the narrative, and we're putting positive energy out about Inkster. you
Yes,
know
sir.
we have to spend dollars with one another in our own community. Other communities, you spend $1, they go and they circulate 7 times before they leave out the community. In our
Mhm.
community, you spend $1 and it's gone. It's right out the community. So we have to
Almost
do that.
immediate.
That's number one. It don't make a difference. And for me, I'm gonna tell you like this: you don't have to live in Inkster. You don't have to been from Inkster. If you okay with what I'm talking about on my platform and you love what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
you are an Inksterite. So
Man.
it don't make a difference if you're black, you're white, you're whatever you are.
Yes, sir.
It's about taking care of our people and setting that foundation. And it starts with us, brother. And what you're
Well,
doing right now by us connecting is a great start. So I'm full support for ASAP. I love the concept. I got a chance to watch a few of the videos you sent me last night.
oh yeah,
I
yeah,
passed that
definitely.
along to some of my folks.
Yes,
So I'm
sir.
looking forward, for people to be able to view this broadcast today. And anything that I can do, I'm going to be here for you as well.
Yes, sir. Just so you understand, it's not a sports show. It's
Yeah, I
definitely
know.
not a
I saw,
sports
I
show.
saw that. I saw that.
Yep.
I love it.
We created this show because I noticed that the reason that we're in the position that we are is because the information is not equally distributed.
Hmm,
So
that's real.
we get things 10 years later. So we're
Yep.
always going to be behind.
Yep.
So I want to bring up topics about things that I missed out on that weren't
Yep.
relevant or weren't present when I was coming up, when I was on Colgate. Financial
Yep.
literacy, mental health, systemic racism, different
Yes.
things of that nature for Inkster.
Yes.
That's why I'm doing it. For
Yes.
Inkster, for little cities in Houston, to try to do my part of narrowing the gap. That's what it
Yes.
is. Yes,
And
sir.
that's
So
exactly what we have to do, brother.
here we
I call
go.
myself the I call myself the pilot city.
Yes,
Come
sir.
here if you wanna affect change and you wanna be, part of what's gonna affect our community and our culture for years to come. Let's start it right here in Inkster. You want to start a business, start it right here in Inkster. You want to start up you whatever it is.
Yes,
Let's figure it out. We're gonna start it right here in Inkster. We're gonna make it a model and we're gonna take it across this world,
that's right.
not just only our nation. So I hear you loud and clear, brother. And
Yes, sir.
we're like-minded because we
Mhm.
know that everybody, don't play sports. And that's one of the things that the folks, they're not maybe not even interested in sports, but they are interested in people and people
Mhm.
that are genuine about true progress.
Yeah, that's why
And
I'm touching on that more than an athlete. Now, every week it's a professional athlete,
yeah,
but it's a professional athlete that has something to say, that's
that's
fighting
awesome.
for a
We
cause.
got to get to know the
Yes.
person behind the
Yep.
athlete, right?
For
Yes.
justice,
Oh, I
equality.
saw Rob Woodson, man. That was a great interview, man. Thank you,
Yes,
man.
sir. Thank you.
Again, I love the concept of what you guys are doing. So I'm in full support and I will be tuning in. So
I appreciate you.
Yeah, and I appreciate you joining the show, because I will say our community as a whole, we need a shot in the arm, right?
Yes, sir.
And we need doctors like yourself
Mm-hmm.
to deliver that shot, because what you're doing is you're inspiring a community to action, right? And you know, we talked about it earlier when we talked about being coaches, you know, and we talked about it in one of our other shows, and I said that, you know, to be a coach, you got to be M&Ms, you got to be mentors, you know, and you got to motivate. And that's what you're doing, whether you realizing that you're coaching the city of Inkster and those who live around it to be the best they can be, and go above the potential that people see in it right now. And so, you know, I appreciate people like yourself that are from that area and decide, you know what, I'm going to invest in this, so much so that I'm going to run for mayor, and we're going to make a change in this community. So I commend you for that. You know,
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor.
Blessings to be on the show. Thank you for
Definitely. We got your back, man. You took on a responsibility and a feat that you know, is just as tough as Chicago, you know, Los Angeles, our 6-mile city.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we with you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right,
so
man.
much.
Talk to you soon, sir.
All right. See you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great
care. Take care, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Well, we said that we were going to set out to affect change. We said that season 2 that we would be diving deeper than we ever had, and turning over stones and looking under things that weren't. And I just didn't expect it to be like this, but you know, we are actually, you know, on a mission, have, you know, strategized and are going about affecting that change the way that we could around this country. The feat is huge, but
we just have to. You know, the thing is we have to be okay with having the uncomfortable conversations, right? Because and it's not to offend anybody. You know, it's not to have a pity party. It's to inform. And the thing is
inspire change.
Here's the part that really has you know, as I think about it, we've been, and I'll speak about me. All right, I'm not going to throw it on anybody else. I've been politically correct, and not said things, and when I could have actually informed and made a difference.
True. Same here.
So what's important to you, right? Are you trying to make a difference? Do you want to make a difference? You know, because you can't complain about something and you're not going to try to, you know, if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And so for me, you know, like I said, having these difficult conversations, having these, you know, talking about these topics that might make somebody who's all about being politically correct feel a little uneasy, I'm all for it.
Hey, let me tell you, there's a lot of things that changed, man. So you're not speaking up and being PC. You get what I'm saying too? We are in a shut up and dribble society, you know, but we don't have anybody that has stepped up and told us that it's not acceptable. It's just starting to happen now. You look back to the early 90s, man, that whole movement, you know, with Chuck D, Queen Latifah, X-Clan, everything. People were stepping up and speaking out against injustice. You get what I'm saying? Once they killed Tupac, you haven't seen it. Now we're settled. So that goes back to what Coach Graham was saying. You get what I'm saying? About being the leaders. They kill them. It's the truth. But we got to keep going. We got to pick it up. So we'll continue to do our part, you know, to ameliorate everything. And, man, I'm just saying, this was a great show. A great show. Progressive.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to put sports to the side a little bit to really just to dig in. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and we saw, and you saw that it's honestly, sports is kind of intertwined in everything that we do, and it can be something that you can take and apply the concepts to what you do in an everyday life. But the thing is it's more than sports.
It's more than sports.
More than sports.
Just are using sports as a catalyst to get the point across. Right. Well, all right, brother. Until next week, we'll see you later. Or ASAP.